day when the Russia-Ukraine crisis has dominated all the world's news. It is coming to you live from plot 42 Nile Avenue. This is Prime Edition and I'm Jerome Paul Sonko, here to drive your business. And tell you what, a lot of stories that we do have for you. Just sit back and relax because this is a Prime Edition driving your business. And kicking off with our key stories of the day. Ever since the Uganda Revenue Authority started the enforcement on the use of e-invoices and digital stamps, the turn-up has been immense, higher than the initial estimate. Michael Masembe, the supervisor of tax education at URA, reveals the turn-up from the manufacturers. Take a look at the details. In Uganda Revenue Authority introduced the digital tax stamp to combat illicit trade, seal revenue leakages, boost collection and increase efficiency in managing taxpayer compliance. And in 2020, it introduced the electronic physical receipting and invoicing solution, the eFRIS. A digital tax stamp is a physical papered stamp that is applied to goods or their packaging. It contains security features and codes to prevent counterfeiting and tampering. It also helps in tracking and tracing goods. Michael Masembe, the supervisor for tax education at Uganda Revenue Authority, says that the response from the manufacturers towards the DTS has been positive as the register grew immensely and shot beyond the expectations from Uganda Revenue Authority initially.
We projected around 100 or so manufacturers who would be eligible. When you look at the enforcing law, the Tax Procedures Code in Section 19, where we are allowed to gazette, where it is required that a manufacturer affixes stamps, and also the regulations that guide on how this is supposed to be done. At the inception time of implementing this solution, we thought around 100 or so manufacturers would be. But by 31st December, we've had the register growing to over 520 and more. It's over 540, I think 547 manufacturers and importers of goods into Uganda. So the response, I think, has shot above our initial expectations. The growth in the tax heads, like I've told you, revenue from the manufacturers reported growing by over 16-17%. So I see there is growth within the tax heads where we have deployed this solution and on the products where we have deployed this solution.
Masembe, however, revealed that there have been some challenges, and most of these have been the expenses that the manufacturers have to incur during the process of declaring to the Uganda Revenue Authority, and he explains how they are trying to solve these challenges.
There have been challenges. I think the learning curve would dictate so, and naturally it would. It means manufacturers have to make adjustments, maybe in the production line, to fix that gadget that stamps on top of the bottle top where it has to be done, or they have to provide for the extra effort of affixing these stamps manually, maybe on a water bottle, maybe on a drink or so. So the challenge has been there. What we think is this expense and this cost is a deduction. It is an expense that you can knock off your profits as you are declaring to Uganda Revenue Authority. And so you would take care of it within the tax treatment of your profits. It is a deductible and would take care of it in that way. The challenge is there. It's a learning curve. I will tell you, for those where we started, it is now moving seamlessly. But as long as it is something new that you are starting, there is supposed to be that learning process. I'll tell you now, while we are going into the non-alcoholic beverages, the non-fermented and fermented drinks, as we go into the manufacturers of cooking oil, we need to come to terms with the reality that it is going to take a process. We're going to have to learn, and we've had engagements earlier with these sectors at the URA office, and we will continue engaging. This solution We even send URA officers to assist you at your premises, because we know the challenge of getting it to work seamlessly will have to interrupt how your business has been working, but we work together. We see there are no interruptions, or there are minimal interruptions, and it is good for both of us. You as a manufacturer.
Uganda Revenue Authority has made 5 more products that will bear digital tax stamps aside of beer, soda, bottled water, wines, spirits, tobacco products, sugar and cement, which were gazettes earlier. The new products include cooking oil, juices, alcoholic, non-alcoholic and fermented beverages. This development is expected to take effect on 1st May 2022. URA therefore encourages every manufacturer, importer, distributor, agent or trader of these gazetted goods to utilize the transition period of 2 months and ensure all stock of gazetted goods bears a digital tax stamp. Growing together, 20 years of serving Uganda is the Uganda Revenue Authority. And on the matter of the digital tax solutions here, you can clearly see that they will be looking at non-alcoholic beverages this time around and fermented beverages. And as a matter of fact, they will as well try as much as they can to look at the cooking oil. That is it, as we definitely driving your business. This is the Prime Edition. Well, moving on to the next story, financial sector deepening in partnership with MasterCard Foundation has launched a 5-year micro and small enterprise recovery fund. This particular one is set to boost 50,000 enterprises as recovering those enterprises that are recovering from the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. And if you look at this particular one, the $20 million approximately 70 billion Ugandan shillings fund will shorten the recovery process or help in terms of the own businesses that employ and sustain the livelihood of Ugandans. Let's have a look at this story.
Very much officially launched the micro and small enterprises.
The Ugandan economy is emerging from devastating impact of COVID-19 health pandemic, but prospects for growth are undermined by increasing pressure on its natural resources, and that's according to the latest World Bank economic analysis for the country. MasterCard Foundation and Financial Sector Deepening have therefore launched a new fund to revive 50,000 micro and small enterprises in Uganda. According to reports, the $20 million, which is approximately 70 billion fund, will shorten the recovery process of youth and women-owned business that do employ and sustain the livelihood of millions of Ugandans. The fund is non-discriminatory and will directly secure 100,000 at-risk jobs while enabling 150,000 additional opportunities for dignified and fulfilling work for young people.
It's a fund that seeks to support micro and small businesses, especially those businesses that are women-owned or women-led, that are youth-owned or youth-led, be able to recover from the effects of the pandemic. And this fund seeks to provide liquidity to Tier 3, that is micro deposit taking institutions, and Tier 4 financial institutions, which include money lenders, non-bank microfinance institutions, as well as SACCOs.
In this, medium and small enterprises will receive credit worth between Uganda shillings 100,000 and 10 million, which will be delivered through participating microfinance institutions and SACCOs. In addition to supporting SMEs, the fund will build resilience of grassroots financial service provider by digitizing workflow process and strengthening the capacity to attract more long-term institutional capital to address shocks and ensure the sustainability of systematic growth.
Seek to provide liquidity to these financial institutions that usually serve the target group I've talked about with concessional funding with not more than 2.5% per annum. The goal of providing concessional funding is for this institution to be able to provide affordable capital to these micro and small businesses so that they can be able to recover from the pandemic.
How much money together?
So this fund hopes to run for 5 years, and the MasterCard Foundation has set aside a total of $20 million or approximately 70 billion Uganda shillings that is going to be lent out to these businesses over that period.
Recognize based on FinScope data on financial inclusion indicators that women and young people are often excluded and don't get access to finance. Women and young people typically lack collateral, especially immovable collateral like land or property against which loans are given. Through this facility, we're targeting very micro loans where one person shops or 2 or 3 people employed dukas can actually get access. They are getting access through microfinance institutions like Tier 3 and Tier 4, and including SACCOs, who understand how to give loans to these small businesses, especially women and youth, because that is their target segment. They don't often need immovable collateral. They have different models of reaching these women and youth. And our hope through this partnership is to enable 100,000 jobs that are at risk to be reaffirmed, to continue to earn the income that they earned in 2019, and support 50,000 businesses at the end of 5 years.
The Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Ramadan Ngobi, notes that the country can't be developed with poor people. He therefore underscored the need to have education and financial inclusion strategy for better economic growth.
Thank you very much. We know that there are 2 key proven opportunity equalizers in life. One is education, the other one is financial inclusion. If you want to equalize opportunities amongst people, give them those 2 things: education and financial inclusion. If people have access to finance at good terms which they can afford, and also people have education, they will always sort out themselves. They will find means to prosper. And government is very committed to this. We have a very well laid out national financial inclusion strategy which envisions all Ugandans having access and using a broad range of quality and affordable financial services.
This data that we have received from micro and small enterprises that we have surveyed, we surveyed both men and women, and we learned that the average income that their households were taking home was $900,000 in 2019. By 2021, during the pandemic, it dropped by 50%. But when it came to women enterprises, it dropped by 67%. That means they were taking home less money than their male counterparts, because women have challenges like mobility. They're responsible for childcare, and schools were closed for 2 years, so they were bearing additional burden, and hence the focus on helping them oxygenate and come back and perform and serve their households better.
Financial inclusion is the availability and equality of opportunities to access financial services. It is as well a process by which individuals and business can access appropriate, affordable and timely financial products and services, which include banking, loan and insurance products. Pedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV.
Sounds of Pedison Mumbere. I pretty much think we are into a year of economic recovery, and speaking of the fact that the trader community is filled up with the small and medium-sized enterprises, they greatly need to move on board with actually moving on and on to recover this very year 2022. Well, that aside, I'm a resident of Entebbe Road, to be precise, Kajansi Chitende, all that aside. Well, speaking of that, when you look at the situations regarding traffic jam, congestion has affected a number of businesses. The congestion in the city is a major issue around different production processes, and it's affecting a number of businesses. Kampala metropolitan areas continue to face challenges with traffic. This, among many reasons, has affected business in the city. We take a look at how traffic jam antagonizes business, as Gloria Mbabazi reports.
Traffic congestion is a major issue in cities around the world, particularly in developing countries, with potentially negative effects on outcomes ranging from economic activity to health. Kampala comes with no exception when it comes to traffic jam. Traffic Police Commander, Kampala Metropolitan Superintendent of Police, Rogers Nsereko Kauma, takes us through what causes a lot of traffic on roads.
We have a lot going on in the city, as some of you might see. There's a lot of roadworks going on, especially at the parts of Clock Tower. There's that project of constructing the flyovers to ease on transport. So right now it is a challenge because the roads there are narrowed, and we have to compete with the rest of us on the road, the cars, the border borders, the pedestrians, the bicycle riders. So we are all in that narrow junction, and it affects the traffic flow because most of the cars use that area to come into the city. So naturally it has to affect the flow of traffic. So that's one major point. Then we have the border borders. We have so many border borders, and they are coupled with indiscipline. They don't have any rules they are following, and it has also caused to the build-up of jam. Then we have so many pedestrians, again, crisscrossing here and there. They don't use the crossing points, and also the crossing points are not as many. So we find also that complication of having pedestrians to have to cross through the traffic of vehicles and border borders. And then we have our Ugandan driver, the Ugandan driver. If I say Ugandan driver, I believe some of you, or most of you, know what I mean by a Ugandan driver, because these are the people you find are overlapping. They are not keeping in their lanes. They tend to overlap, and they disregard the other people who are in the lane, who are moving slowly to get to their destinations. So at the end of the day, those overlappers, they end up blocking oncoming traffic and then causing a lot of unnecessary jam. Yet, if they had remained in their lane and moved slowly, then the movement would have been a bit easier and faster, although slow, other than blocking the junction when you have no other place to go, and then the other oncoming traffic has no other place to come through. So we have, because of the narrow roads, we get incidences of broken down vehicles, especially the trucks. They affect movement of traffic because, given our narrow roads in most parts of the city here, if you get a big truck breaking down in the middle of the road, we get these problems because it takes time to clear them, and then also we don't have many breakdowns to pull such huge trucks. So it brings a lot of congestion because sometimes we have to divert road users to other routes leading to the city, so that we have a clear, the right methods of removing the truck. Otherwise, if we are to leave you there until when the truck is removed, then you might find that you might take the whole day in the traffic.
Nsereko further says that traffic jam has got these particular effects on businesses, citing the delays in transportation of goods.
Actually, jam affects business. There's a lot of loss in business because you can't imagine the number of deals that go unanswered or unattended because of jam. People lose multi-million, shilling or dollar deals because of jam. Because time is money. They say time is money. So that is the essence of that. There's a lot of time lost, productive time that would have been otherwise used productively is lost in these Kampala jams. So at the end of the day, the business won't be as productive as it would have been if the movement was a bit free and easier and smoother.
Except being less productive at work, traffic jam also causes health hazards like accidents, stress and frustration, and delayed reaction to emergencies.
The stress and frustrations is a key word. Key point, mental depression. You really need to actually have mental health as you're heading to your workplace. Besides that, let's still stick on transportation as second-hand car dealers have decried of tax hikes imposed on them by the government, which are higher than the prices at which the cars are bought from the countries that they actually manufactured from, bringing negative impact to the car dealers community as well as the consumers who are forced to purchase them at quite a higher price. Let's have more of the details.
Ugandan citizens, just like many other developing countries in Africa, prefer importing used cars, especially from Japan. While used Japanese cars tend to be more popular, cars imported may also be new, hence some regulations have been put in place to manage the importing process. In an interview with Smart 24 TV, Mr. Kitio Abubakari, the Public Relations Officer, Prime Car Sales Center in Kampala, he says that high taxes are imposed on them when importing the cars. He says that the taxes charged are higher than the costs at which they buy these cars.
We buy these cars from Japan at approximately 15 million. Then when they reach Mombasa, we pay another 3 million for the person that is going to drive from Mombasa to Kampala. That includes fuel, service of the car, and port charges. Then from Mombasa to Kampala, they go straight to the bond. Then at the bond, they give you assessment. The car that you bought for 15 million, you can get the assessment of either 18 million, from 18 million going up. So that means the cost of paying tax is more costly than buying a car from Japan.
He says these cars are purchased online, whereby the buyer looks at the detailed pictures and other specifications of the cars and later makes payments using recognized websites. He goes on to explain that after receiving their products, some customers complain about mechanical problems, which are usually not intended, because most of the dealers do imported car testing by using road trips from Mombasa to Kampala, which proves that the car is in good condition to be used, and also check for extra problems on arrival.
For us, the test we give for the car is from driving from Mombasa to Kampala. So when it reaches here, you go, you clear the taxes, and then you bring the car to the bond. You put it here, then the customer comes after, say like a week, a 2 or a month. They will come, look at the car, bring their mechanic looks at the car, and then they say the car is fine. But then after paying, say like after a month, you might find that the customer comes back complaining of that very car you had sold to him. Some of these things might not be intentional, that I'm saying this car has a problem to the customer. Because say, like a car that has been driven from Mombasa to Kampala for about 1,100 kilometers away from Kampala. Then reaching here, it keeps here for a month or 2. Then a client comes and then buys it. It might not be intentional that I'm giving him a faulty car, but just that thing you might not have overseen it.
He says the most bought cars are from the Toyota company because they are pocket-friendly, both with price and fuel consumption. He further says that the spare parts of the Toyota cars are easily found, unlike the other companies.
They are not common for one thing. First, they are not pocket-friendly, as in repairs. And then fuel also. Their consumption of fuel is different from that of Toyota. So you can say, like Kaundo now, the consumption of it, like the 2.4, it goes for about 10 kilometer per liter. But when you go to another type, say like Nissan, it might go for 6 or 5 kilometer per liter. So you see it is not friendly. Then with repairs, these Toyota cars, all the spares are all over.
Sevia Tumwitirize, Smart 24 Prime News.
We are having all of us saved from that particular burden. Well, trying to build up with our last local story here coming up is the misuse of government vehicles. Just a few days after government actually warned of misuse of the government vehicles. Now, this particular time, the Public Accounts Committee has accused officials of using government-owned vehicles for private work. Let's check this out.
Several ministries continue to buy expensive fuel guzzling vehicles in violation of standing orders. That was according to the parliamentary report revealed in 2009. The draft audit report of the Public Accounts Committee also accused officials of using government-owned cars to do private work, while some civil servants keep the automobiles even after retirement. However, the Deputy Inspector General of Government, Dr. Patricia Ochan-Okiria, has cautioned government officers against misuse of government vehicles.
Act. And the spirit behind the law is basically to emphasize on the separation of public offices and private business. We do not want people to mix public work with their private work. Therefore, if you have a government car, you should not use it for carrying pineapples to your farm. You should not use it for carrying grass to your farm. You should not be using it for carrying materials to your sites. Like we have had instances where you see an ambulance which should be carrying patients to hospital, carrying pineapples to the market. So we would like Ugandans to wake up and understand the dangers that are posed by corruption, and this will dictate the pace of anti-corruption activities in our country.
According to the report, instead of procuring less expensive vehicles that economically and effectively meet the government's transportation needs, some officials procure luxury vehicles for their own comfort and prestige. Dr. Ochan-Okiria further challenged leaders who misuse government offices for their selfish interest, saying that this is against the laws of Uganda.
And misuse of government offices, you are employed to be a clerk and you're using your position to amass wealth. You remember the example the Honorable IGG gave? Somebody just keeps someone's file or absconds from duty and work is frustrated. So every leader must get up and be responsible according to the provisions of the law and be able to implement the mandate of their institutions.
She further decried of lack of enough funding to execute the duties.
All government ministries, departments and agencies are having budgetary constraints. Budgetary constraints because you do not realize enough money from the revenue collection. We do not realize enough money, and government has to prioritize. You cut your coat according to the cloth. So you find that most government departments and MDAs do not get enough resources, just like the Inspectorate of Government. We get little resources and we have to work with it progressively with the availability of resources. That's why you see we have clustered to do verifications for 160 leaders. We are not saying those are the only leaders to be verified. We know that in the next phase we can do another number, and progressively with the availability of resources we'll be able to increase that number.
The Inspectorate of Government is an independent institution charged with the responsibility of eliminating corruption, abuse of authority, and of public office. The powers as enshrined in the Constitution and IGG Act include to investigate or cause investigation, arrest or cause arrest, prosecute or cause prosecution, make orders and give directions during investigations. Pedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV.
Well, with that, let's sum up our prime edition with the sports news as Hudson Jeff Chigozi takes us through. When you look at the situation that's actually coming up, we start with weightlifting. as Julius Sechtoriko has been omitted from the team going to Mauritius for final qualifiers phase, and also the UEFA Europa, as well as the Conference League, the English Premier League returns tonight as the Arsenal do entertain the Wolves at the Emirates in the space of only 2 weeks after they met at the Wolverhampton Stadium at the Molineux. Well, Jeff Hudson Chigozi compiled these details.
Julius Sechtoriko has been sidelined from Team Uganda, leaving for final qualifiers of the 2022 Commonwealth Games to be hosted in Birmingham, England. Last year, Sechtoriko, who was the only weightlifter from Uganda, vanished from the team's camp in Izumisano ahead of the 2022 Tokyo Olympic Games in Japan, but was found in Yokkaichi before being returned home. Despite being on the International Weightlifting Federation, the 20-year-old has been sidelined from the 5-man team, leaving for final qualifiers phase in Mauritius. National Council of Sports Assistant General Secretary David Katende says Sechtoriko is subject to clearance from Uganda Olympic Committee's disciplinary committee before being absorbed back into the system. He added, whatever happened did so. He went through the disciplinary process from Uganda Olympics Committee, which has taken place. If receives a clearance report, he will be absorbed back into the system. Uganda Weightlifting Federation President Salimu Musoke said that Sechtoriko's question is with Uganda Olympics Committee and the government. He added, if the International Weightlifting Federation writes to him that he has qualified, then he will bring it to the government and the answer will be from there. The team will miss Sechtoriko's vast experience in the final qualifiers, given his international exposure after featuring at the 2018 Commonwealth Games in Australia. The UEFA Europa League returns to action with 8 games from different stadiums. Dynamo Zagreb vs Sevilla in Croatia, Lazio vs FC Porto in Italy, Olympiacos vs Atalanta in Greece, Real Sociedad vs Leipzig in Spain, Braga vs Sheriff Tiraspol in Portugal, Napoli vs Barcelona at the Diego Armando Maradona Stadium in Naples, Rangers vs Borussia Dortmund in Scotland, Real Betis will vs Zenit St. Petersburg in Spain. Olympique de Marseille, Rangers take on Leicester City, PAOK will take on Midtjylland, Vitesse to play against Rapid Wien, Slavia Praha are hosting Fenerbahce. In the English Premier League, the battle for the top 4 resumes as the 6th-placed Arsenal host Wolverhampton Wanderers at the Emirates Stadium to lighten their chances of qualifying the Champions League next season. Wolves are 7th on the logo with only 2 points making a difference between them and Arsenal. Jeff Hudson Chigozi.
Well, Hudson Chigozi, thank you very much for the sports updates. And with that, you can truly call it a news bulletin that takes your breath away. It is the Prime Edition, and I'm Jerome Paul Sonko. And of course, if you want to have all the details regarding business, please do add us up on our socials on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram on at Smart24TV. The website is www.smart24tv.com. YouTube, remember to like, comment, and subscribe to that. If at all you've definitely missed anything to do with the news bulletin that we've had this particular evening. It is a Wednesday, a cold Wednesday, I would say, a cold Thursday rather. It is a cold Thursday, and as the weekend is ahead of us on Friday, coming up after this is Smart Safaris. Get ready to explore the beauty of Uganda, a show that is dedicated to giving you the tourism sector. Tomorrow we shall return surely with Smart Means Business, not only that, financial markets, and Yugi Tukole. This is Smart24 TV, and we are driving business. The hashtag is JP Live on Twitter. Have a good one. Smart 24, driving business.